I was reading something that was said at the Southern Methodist University campus last week by a professor from the University of Virginia, not a professing Christian. This professor said that the phenomenon of an activist, evangelical, fundamentalist public in America, the entrance of the Christian public into activist roles in the political arena, is not to be gauged by what they did in 1980, but by what they're going to do in the 1980s, because they're here to stay. Well, I agree with that. We're here to stay. You can't shout us down. You can't shoot us down. You can't vote us out. We're here to stay. And by the grace of God, morality will prevail.
We've just heard Reverend Jerry Falwell say that morality will prevail. But whose moral code is he referring to? The morality of social law arrived at by a consensus of all Americans? Or the morality of Christian fundamentalists implemented through special interest political maneuverings? Friends and foes alike are well aware that the moral majority's goals are to change our social morality laws by amending our Constitution. Once changed, all Americans would be forced to live morally or pay the price. The cost would be the loss of freedom of choice for millions of non-fundamentalist Americans. Rights like abortion, sex education, and equal rights for women would all be defined through conservative Christian attitudes. In this age of political conservatism, some aren't concerned about the growth and possible effects of the moral majority. While any student of the American Constitution must wonder, is the moral majority right for America? I'm Mike Drum. In the next half hour, we'll hear from Reverend Falwell, from the American Civil Liberties Union, and from other articulate opponents to the moral majority. We'll also visit a moral majority rally described as conjuring up memories of Hitler's Nuremberg rallies of the 30s. Unlike Nazi Germany, though, a moral majority rally attracts its share of vocal demonstrators. Before we hear from Reverend Falwell and his critics, let's go down to the I Love America Moral Majority Rally and find out how people feel about the man and his movement. God bless America. Do you think the moral majority is right for America?
I think the moral majority is trying to impose its views on America, and I think America is realizing now how fragile our freedoms are, and that what we are facing now is a political movement that seeks to turn back the clock and reinstate McCarthyism in America.
Well, I'm not sure if that's a right question. I think it's right to be moral, and it's always right for America to be moral.
Okay.
And if that's the question, I think that I'm for it.
Well, I feel the moral majority is trying to push the emphasis that this is a Christian nation, while this is a secular nation. It's a nation in which Christians, Jews, Muslims, and atheists are all equal before the law.
If we're not Christian, what are we? As a Christian, where do we Christians stand up and say, I've had enough of pornography, I've had enough of this, I've had enough of that? In that respect, I think that the moral majority is doing the right thing.
I don't like him. I think he's a jerk. I don't think he understands what's really going on in the country. I don't think religion's the answer. I think God is more diverse than what he's making him out to be. He's the pagan, not the other people.
I think Reverend Falwell is the most important man in the country right now because he's bringing America back to moral sanity, and I'm behind him all the way.
No, I think the moral majority is fascist. They're dedicated to hurting people and putting down those in the minority. They want to take our rights to our own bodies away from us. And when you take the rights to someone's own body away from them, you take their own right to life away from them. They're taking away our choice for our sexuality. They're taking away our choice for control of our own bodies in terms of reproduction. And any time that they take away choices like that, they become fascist. They are fascist, and I think they're a great danger to this country.
I think their principles are certainly very right. Yes, I do.
And Are you a follower of Reverend Falwell?
I'm not a follower of Reverend Falwell, no. His denominational background is totally different from mine, but his principles and his concern about the future of America and about patriotism are certainly the principles that I observe.
We need less arms. We need more love for various people in different lifestyles. And I think it's making a mockery of religion rather than organizing about things that are ethical. So I don't find it's time. And I'm a Baptist minister, so I feel that a lot of the Baptist church is supporting this. We're supporting Anita Bryan back when they were developing these white...
I happen to be a Roman Catholic, but I like what Jerry Falwell is doing. Our Pope would like what he was doing because he speaks out against evil.
Some people are very enthused at the prospect of strict Christian values becoming the foundation of American life. Others are scared by the potential loss of personal freedom such a change would bring. How does Reverend Falwell feel about the effect Christian values have on our constitutional separation of church and state?
That this is a nation under God, and it was indeed established upon the Judeo-Christian ethic, which again in lay language is the Mosaic Law, the Ten Commandments in the Old Testament, the Sermon on the Mount, the laws of Christ in the New Testament. And if you were to take the influence of the Old and New Testament from the law books of America, you'd have no laws left. This is a nation under God.
One group that feels that Falwell's goals are in direct conflict with the spirit and meaning of our Constitution is the American Civil Liberties Union. The Colorado ACLU director, James Joy, disagrees strongly with Falwell on the issue of separation of church and state.
Paramount in their mind, as you look through all the debates of the Founding Fathers, you find two things. One, they wanted stability. Two, they were afraid of any concentration of power. And the result was that they recognized that churches with both the moral teachings as well as the political power that they might have would indeed be a point where power would easily concentrate. And they then tried to separate, I think, the church from the government, and I think quite rightly recognizing that government corrupts churches and churches corrupt government, that they have to be kept separate if each is going to be healthy. When you see them doing things like promoting the teaching of Christian Judaic creationism in the schools and saying that the law must require that that be taught, it seems pretty clearly that they're trying to wipe out the traditional separations of church and state.
The fundamentalist Christian values that Falwell wants to have dominate are competing in the free marketplace of ideals with an ever-growing array of philosophies. The success of the moral majority is dependent in part on the removal of some of these so-called immoral influences. Some call it the cleaning up of a sick society. Others claim censorship.
We are interested in textbooks. I feel that textbook material that is obnoxious, non-constructive, or in many cases simply academic pornography, whether in public or non-public schools, should not be used. I feel that young people are not emotionally, intellectually, physically ready in kindergarten, the first 3-4 grades of school experience, to deal with sex in raw form. And much of what is called sex ed today is just that.
The silliness of believing that if you talk about homosexuality that you're somehow promoting it, or if you talk about extramarital sex that somehow you're endorsing that idea, is absolutely ludicrous. The kids who are taking these courses know about that already. What you want to do is to teach them so that in such a way that they understand what the social and scientific implications of those things are, not that you condemn it morally. So I think that kind of censorship is very bad. If you're going to agree that that particular area of censorship is bad, is all right, and that those books are bad for kids, then why not agree that teaching something other than republicanism is bad? I mean, where are you going to draw the line? What's the peculiar hang-up on sex that we have? I mean, why not teach that the capitalism is bad? How would he feel about that?
Millions of people receive your message on television, as your programming success shows. However, X-rated movies on video cassette are top sellers, and X-rated movies are now showing up on cable television. Do both groups of viewers have the right to their favorite types of programming on television?
Hugh Hefner and Bob Guccione and many others have proven that there is a market for dirt. But at the same time, that doesn't make it right, and that is why we have an obligation to preach what we do preach. Economic boycotts, I think, and that's what we're employing now in the Coalition for Better Television. The lead article in TV Guide this week is a full article on that. There are 300 organizations in the Coalition for Better Television. Dr. Donald Wileman of Tupelo, Mississippi, a former Methodist minister, is the executive director of that program. Moral Majority is only one of 300 organizations in it. Very quickly, the principle that we are employing there is this. We think the network should have the right to produce any kind of programming they want. If they want Mary Hartman, if they want soap, if they want Saturday Night Live, if they want worse, they should have the right to produce whatever they wish. We feel that the sponsors, Procter & Gamble, you name it, should have the right to spend their advertising dollars where they please, supporting what they please. We also feel that the consumers ought to have the right to spend the money where they please. So all we're doing is, during these 90 days, March, April, May, is monitoring. We have 500,000 monitors, persons across the nation, who are looking at television critically and with forms scientifically developed, deciding this is obnoxious, this is not constructive. Pure opinion, but when 500,000 people merge those opinions, we will come up at the end of May with an idea of what the people want and don't want. The television industry has become really a purveyor of filth, and it isn't a question of you can turn the knob if you don't like it. Where are you going to turn it to? Which network?
It is a form of censorship insofar as the public, if he can raise public objections to the publication of certain magazines or movies and things of this nature, that people won't attend them, they will buy them, and then they will go out of business. And I think if there is any logical way to censor magazines or dirty things, or bad political things or anything else, that's the logical way to do it. But in fact, at least a number of his followers have endorsed and supported governmental censorship, which is a whole different question. I quite agree. It wouldn't hurt my feelings in the least if all the porn shops in Colorado or in the United States went out of business because nobody went down to buy that demeaning and distasteful material that they sell. It would be marvelous. I would be, nothing would please me more. Mm-hmm. Nonetheless, I think that what we want to do, what they want to do, is to have the government step in and close those things down. Mm-hmm. And by his own discussion of, for example, the limitations of certain textbooks that he finds unacceptable, you are indeed getting governmental action that is going to turn that around.
Do you think the moral majority is right for America?
No, I don't think they're right for America. I think they're trying to propose simple-minded answers to complex problems. I mean, the problems America's facing, we need new answers, not the answers we have right now and not the answers we had yesterday. We need new answers.
How do you personally feel about Reverend Falwell?
Well, I don't know. He's sort of misguided, but he makes a lot of money.
He does. He don't know what he's talking about. I mean it. Jesus bless you, but you're going to burn. I'm serious. We're trying to save you here, but you won't listen.
I don't know. Burning might be working 40 hours a week, I'll tell you.
Oh, working. He's trying to put it up because he knows we're telling the truth. He's scared because we're telling him the truth.
And what truth is it you're telling me?
Jesus bless you. Why are you atheist, huh? You ever tried Jesus?
Yeah.
What happened? How come that you tried?
It didn't work.
What do you mean it didn't work? He didn't give you a Mercedes-Benz? Is that what you're
saying?
saying?
Well, no, he didn't give me a Mercedes-Benz, but I don't think
I
don't think. Well, first of all, you're not old enough to drive. You didn't ask for a Mercedes-Benz, did you?
Oh, no, but why did you ask for drugs and he didn't give it to you, or what?
I didn't ask for anything for myself.
What did you ask for?
For some kind of society to live in where people can sort of get along, and I don't think God provides that. I think God's sort of backwards.
Man has his own will. He gave you his own will.
Oh, some atheists, some atheists are just as dogmatic as some Christians.
What's born again atheist mean?
Well, it's sort of satirical, you know. Everyone's a born again Christian, so I thought I'd be a born again atheist.
Try to go to church for just 1 month again. Every Sunday, try it.
Yes, it is. I believe in God. I believe in God, but I still believe that's his business. If he wants to, he's the one going wrong, not you. You're in the right. He's wrong. So.
Hey, what do you mean by born again? That's right. You hear that? Yeah. The whole. Just try it.
I'll tell you, it's been a little discouraging here watching some of the young people. I mean,
scared of us.
People get real belligerent. I mean, I've talked to a couple of Christians here that have been friendly, they've been concerned, they've sort of dealt with me as a human being, you know. But some people, it's like they're at a Broncos Oakland Raiders football game. I mean, they're just ready to kill. They're out for blood. And I think the more people are out for blood, the less chances of our survival here on the planet.
How do you feel about some of these demonstrators and gay people that are here today?
Well, again, as a Christian, I have to defend their right, but I believe they're wrong. Just going again on morals, standing by the Word of God, the Bible.
In my mind, religion ought to be a humbling experience, and when you become intolerant and self-righteous, that I think that you have, in fact, lost one of the essential ingredients of a religious person.
We have been, for the last 6 years, 7 years actually, traveling across the United States in coliseums, stadiums, civic centers, preaching a message from 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. America is in desperate need of a divine healing. And I believe it must come first from the house of God. I believe that Bible-believing Christians from across America, on their faces before God, in genuine heart-seeking, heart-searching, prayer, repentance, must seek the face of God for a nation that is ailing. I was very pessimistic about America in the late 70s. It simply seemed that everything was going the wrong direction. But I suppose, lacked enough faith to believe that God was indeed at work. He was at work through Bible-believing pastors and evangelists and preachers. He was at work through the Christian Day School movement. Here today, the ACE regional meeting has convened with us, and it's a fantastic enterprise for God. I was not aware how mightily God was working through Christian parents all over this country who were willing, Dr. Blair, to make a sacrifice for the sake of their children to pay tuition in a private, non-public Christian school and still pay taxes to support a public school system, which we very much do believe in. We want it to be better, and that's why we favor the return of voluntary prayer to the public schools. But somehow, in spite of all that was happening and our lack of faith, things began to happen. The American families began to stand up. They repudiated the White House Conference on Families that was in reality anti-family. They repudiated the efforts of the Equal Rights Amendment to degrade womanhood. And while we believe in equal rights for women, we oppose the ambiguous language of the amendment, which, if ratified, would sanction homosexual marriage and military combat for women, etc. We saw the people repudiate, and that's now a dead issue, thank God. We were able to see Washington experience a radical transformation. I think the American people stood up and said, we've had enough of secular humanism. We've had enough of the amoral minority. And the result has been that government has begun to turn around in Washington and in the state houses. And now, thank God, our pastors have taken heart. 72,000 pastors that I know about are involved aggressively in making the difference every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, all across this nation. I'm glad to announce that millions of Americans have become active Christians, registered, voting, informed Christians who on their knees in prayer, in their churches in active witnessing and soul winning, and at the ballot box as active citizens are deciding that America is worth saving, and they're about the job of doing it. Years ago, God showed me a verse of Scripture. Proverbs 14:12. In paraphrase, it says, living by God's principles promotes a nation to greatness. Violating God's principles brings a nation to shame.
The specter of the moral majority enjoying ultimate success has Americans standing up to speak out against Falwell's movement. One such person is Larry Krauss. Krauss has been actively observing and organizing opposition to the moral majority during the past year. We asked him his views of the moral majority.
Well, I see the moral majority as the religious sort of arm or version of a greater cultural shift that's going on in America toward the right as a response to some of the realities that we faced in the 60s and 70s. The strategy of Holy Crusade is usually contained in a number of holy crusaders, or the true believers who think they have been called of God to ascend to the forces of righteousness in a particular historical time. So they have this Messiah complex, I guess we could call it, this burden which they believe has been placed on them by God to marshal the forces of righteousness. And they do this by appealing to traditional sets of values around God, family, and country. The ethics of any crusader are usually the ethics of the end justifies the means. And to be sure, when you have an ethic of that type, you have always a problem of manipulating, whether it be the media or an audience itself. You have certain ethical questions that are raised. I think in the long run, that begins to backfire. The moral majority, many of the other groups in the religious right, believe that they have the truth. It comes out of the fundamentalist vision of knowledge, their epistemology, which is based on revelation. They believe that God, once and for all, revealed to us the truth, both the truth of life and the truth of action, the truth for ethics and morals. So they believe they have in their codes the ultimate revealed moral truth. They believe that this country was based on that moral truth and that it has vied from that over the last 2 centuries, and that it is their calling to bring that moral atmosphere back into reality. If this type of thinking came to dominate those who are in power in our nation, we will have our narrow-minded, our rigid, our authoritarian people emerge to be a leadership on behalf of an elite in this country, and I see them as in a desperate effort to maintain that privilege and to prop up this empire and to continue to take from the world its resources, an increasing tension building up in the world, not only with the third world people who we seem to find great advantage in exploiting, but also with the Soviet Union as their as their more legalistic and aggressive people come to the fore, that we could, in the name of defending our empire and defending our privilege, create a holocaust in this world through war. And we think that's ultimately disastrous for all of humanity. But we cannot fight it with just criticizing it. We cannot just attack it. We have to begin to enter into a great public democratic dialogue about goals and purposes as a nation, and not merely means, not merely generating a new political consensus, but we need to generate a new moral consensus so we know who we are and where we're going as a people.
Beyond some of the issues we've taken a look at in the past half hour is the attitude of Reverend Falwell and his followers, an attitude that shows very little understanding for those with differing values. Falwell's judgmental nature deserves the careful analysis of anyone who cherishes our constitutional liberties. Do we as a people want to encourage a movement that in its success would undermine the rights of many Americans? Do we want to undermine the moderation that our Constitution encourages? Is the moral majority right for America? I'm Mike Drum.